The EU Migration Pact will come into effect as soon as next year. According to this pact, each EU country, including Poland, will either accept migrants or pay exorbitant fees for each one rejected, over 20,000 euros. The incumbent German chancellor, during an election debate, boasted of his successes when it comes to getting rid of illegal immigrants. He reported that he had called all heads of state and government in Germany's neighbors, including Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk, and told them that they had to accept being sent illegal migrants, quote, because it is possible under European law. Early parliamentary elections in Germany are taking place in less than 2 weeks. We've seen the first debate of the candidates for chancellor, where the current incumbent Olaf Scholz of the SPD faced CDU candidate Friedrich Merz. During the clash, the incumbent chancellor boasted of his successes when it came to getting rid of the problem of illegal immigrants. The rejections are perfectly legal because they involve cases where there are no asylum applications. And I made this possible by calling the heads of state and government of Germany's neighbors and saying, we are doing this now and you must accept it, because it is possible under European law. In other words, Scholz also called Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and informed him that Poland must accept the return of illegal immigrants via Germany to Polish territory, all as part of the transition period until the Migration Pact comes into force next year. However, the Polish Prime Minister has assured his constituents otherwise.
Polska będzie beneficjentem.
Poland will be a beneficiary of the Migration Pact. We will not pay for anything, we will not have to accept any migrants from other directions. The EU will not impose any migrant quotas on us. However, EU migration officials in Europe are telling a different story. Under European Union law, there is no legal way to exempt Poland from implementing any parts of the pact. In a few months, we will hear that we will either have to accept hundreds of thousands of migrants or we will have to pay for it. In this situation, these mythical EU COVID recovery funds that Tusk claimed he'd bring in won't flow into Poland because the EU will deduct a penalty for not accepting migrants. It was the Tusk government that agreed to the document, along with the governments of Denmark and Cyprus, where they assure that they will speed up work on the implementation of the Migration Pact. Germany says plainly that the pact will be in their interest. The most important thing is that we can send back even more people within the framework of European law, and this legislation will come into force next year in Europe, throughout the European Union. It seems that Tusk may have wanted to preempt what Scholz would say about the Migration Pact. Do not be surprised if, once in a while from some EU capital, you will hear announcements that do not quite correspond to reality, because, for example, their election campaign requires such a tough position on migration. Please do not worry about it, and rely on our announcements as to the situation in Poland on the issue of migration. It is us who will make the decisions here in Warsaw, and no one else, anywhere else. We are very committed to a new migration policy. First of all, solidary distribution of migrants within the European Union. Germany will benefit greatly from this. There is no indication that Poland will be excluded. Who are the Polish people to believe? The Germans with official documents on their side? I, in talks with my European partners, exclude this type of scenario where Poland has to do something because the Migration Pact says it does. Or Tusk, infamous for being a serial flip-flopper, particularly on the topic of migration. It was Tusk, as head of the European Council, who threatened the Polish government of the time with penalties for not taking in illegal migrants. This will involve certain consequences. These are the rules in Europe. The Polish government is agreeing to pay for Germany's mistakes. The Polish public is to pay for the fact that the Germans allowed illegal immigrants into their country on a large scale, and today want to get rid of them. Because this current Polish government is basically a government that carries out instructions from abroad. The Polish authorities should talk to the German authorities, first of all, putting a clear expectation on them to stop sending immigrants from Germany to Poland. Otherwise, we would introduce border controls and simply enforce them. That's what the conversation between Tusk and Scholz should have looked like. Unfortunately, everything points to the opposite, that it was the German chancellor who presented his expectations to be implemented by the Polish authorities. This is supported by official data. Germany has transferred many thousands of illegal migrants to Polish territory during the transition period before the enactment of the Migration Pact by introducing border controls on the Polish border.
W tym momencie wszystkim swoim sąsiadom
At this point,
wypowiedziały,
Germany has
kodeks
terminated the Schengen Codex
i
with all their
stosują
neighbors,
to,
and they're applying what they
już
have
w
already been
Polsce
applying in
od
Poland for over a year, because border controls on the Polish-German border were introduced in October 2023, and I estimate the numbers for 2024 at about 9,000 people. My information came in the first half of last year, mainly from the German Federal Police themselves.
Szacuje na
The Polish government has done virtually nothing about the procedure. Instead, it is investing, for example, in border guards to handle illegal migrants, and nearly 50 integration centers for foreigners. In all likelihood, Poland will either take in illegal immigrants or pay horrendous sums of money to reject them. Why shouldn't asylum seekers go to Viktor Orban? Why can't the Hungarians, the Czechs, the Poles, or the Slovaks take in the migrants who are with us? Poland will do its part. Slovakia will do its part. According to the words of Olaf Scholz, Poland is already doing its part.